welcome back to the Conspiracy Couple podcast. I'm Marissa.
And I'm Ethan.
And today we have another very interesting topic to dive into with you guys. But before we get started, I'm going to turn it over to Ethan.
Follow us on all social media platforms. We are on Instagram at Conspiracy Couple, TikTok at Conspiracy Couple Podcast. And if you are not already watching on YouTube, go ahead and go over to YouTube, click the search bar, and type in Conspiracy Couple Podcast.
I thought you were going to do the subscribe thing and I was going to point down at like the subscribe button.
No, people got to find us first. But if you have already found us at Conspiracy Couple Podcast on YouTube and you are currently watching and you are not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe, turn on post notifications, go ahead and like this video if you do enjoy, and leave a comment letting us know what you think about this episode and giving us further topic ideas for future episodes.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Any updates or anything you want to share?
No.
No. Okay.
The same things that have been in motion are not in motion, but because I haven't had time to work on them.
Yeah. They were in motion.
There will be things coming.
But they have hit like a divot in the road.
And the divot being work.
And so they will be going into motion.
The divot being my real job.
But they have to...
Yeah, I'm going to work on it once I get my schedule down a little bit better and figure out how to spend my time. I'll get some stuff going.
Yes.
Hopefully, I would say by the end of next month.
Okay.
That's my goal.
Cool.
So.
All right. And if you want to incentivize, then share us with a friend. Get some new subs. Get some new people to join this community.
Yeah.
And maybe we can kind of push that thing that's in motion out of the divot.
Help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by some point in our lives.
Originally, it was by December.
Wait, that was?
Yes. No, I wanted 100.
Oh.
So that's a little bit more feasible.
I think our goal of 1,000 subscribers at some point in our lives is gettable.
Achievable.
Yeah.
Gettable is not a word.
I think we can get there.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. Today on the podcast, we get to discuss another one of my very favorite subjects. Ethan, do you have any idea what that might be?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I asked you what the episode was on before we started. And
okay,
you said it was a cryptid.
That's right. You know, I will... At least you remembered. At least you remembered when you asked.
That was like 30 seconds ago.
I mean... Sometimes...
Literally right before we started recording.
Sometimes, do we not tend to forget things immediately after they are spoken to us? I'm including myself in that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's not just you. So, yes, that's right. We were discussing another cryptid. I love cryptid episodes. I love talking about cryptids. And today we are going to be talking about a creature called the Ozark Howler. So, as always... Ethan, have you heard anything about the Ozark Howler?
So, I know that there's a show called Ozark.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Well, the show Ozark is not about the Ozark Howler.
I know it's not. It's about Jason.
It's about
Bateman? Yeah.
Michael.
I haven't
Bluth.
seen it. Yeah, it's about Michael Bluth.
Michael Bluth. You know, my mom told me that I had to watch it because she said it was such a good show. And I watched the first episode. I couldn't get into it. Maybe, I mean, if you guys think that I should, if you think I will like it and that it gets better after the first episode, let me know and I'll consider getting back into it. But, yeah. Sorry, Susan. I tried. It just wasn't happening. But it's not, if it was about the Ozark Howler.
I feel like a lot of people, like, when we talk about shows... It's like this trope where it's like, oh, you just have to get through the first season and then it gets really good. I'm like, isn't the first season supposed to be the one that like teaches me about who these characters are and is supposed to get me interested in the show?
Yeah.
And make me want to watch more. So if I don't like the first season, if I can't get through the first season, what makes you think that, like, why would I keep going?
Right.
Because I agree that the first season of most shows is not the best season of those shows.
Right.
For the most part. But it shouldn't be unwatchable.
Right. And here's the thing. I have a limit. Like, I mean, currently I have a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
But when I start work in a week, I will have a limited amount of time on my hands. And I don't have the time to commit to watching like 10 to 20 hours of TV with the idea that I have to get past it and maybe I will like it on the 21st
But this is
hour.
also coming from somebody who's currently watching 3 different shows. 4.
No, what shows am I watching?
You're watching the OC.
Yes.
You're watching Jersey Shore.
Yes.
You're watching The Real Housewives of Potomac.
I finished that one.
Well, I'm still counting it because it's within the time frame. Well, you're always watching Law and Order SVU.
Yeah.
And you were watching... What was the other? You were watching The X-Files. That's 5 shows in the past week that you have watched.
Okay, well, I have categories for all the different
Plus,
shows that I watch.
we are watching Junior Bake Off.
Mm-hmm.
And technically still watching Doctor Who.
Yes.
Plus, we just watched a documentary that will be announced, that will be talked about later.
Anyways, so we're going to be talking about the Ozark Howler. The show Ozark is not about the Ozark Howler. So the Ozark Howler has a few other names that it goes by, or that it's been called. Also called the Ozark Black Howler, the Hoo-Hoo, Nightshade Bear, or the Devil Cat, is a mysterious creature that supposedly lives in the wooded area of the Ozark Mountains. And sightings occur primarily in Missouri and Arkansas, but some sightings are as far as Oklahoma and Texas, and it is one of the most enduring local legends in the area. So the area of the Ozarks has a number of urban legends and myths that residents of the area have passed on through the generations. And some of these other legends include the Wild Man of Arkansas, the Fouke Monster, and the Boggy Creek and White River Monsters. So it's a pretty interesting area in regards to like depth of legends and depth of like supposed cryptids, which is very interesting. I was reading through this and I was like, thanks for the topic ideas, you guys. But so just that is kind of the mindset of the people in the area. It's an area that breeds these kinds of things, kind of like we were talking about the Pine Barrens in the Jersey Devil episode. The Ozarks are a similar kind of area. And the Ozarks are around 47,000 square miles of forest and wilderness, and much of it is still kind of unexplored wilderness terrain. And it's a treacherous area with sinkholes, cliffs, and caves, which makes it incredibly difficult for humans to travel through the area, with most areas unable to accommodate for cars, and some areas unable to accommodate for like traveling on horseback. And Missouri has even been called the cave state because it has so many caves and caverns that creatures could hide in or live in. And it has over 7,000 caves that go under the state in almost every direction. So in other words, the Ozarks has a pretty dangerous terrain that lends itself to a lot of unexplored areas. And that has created this kind of culture of a lot of urban legends that have been passed down. So specifically the Ozark Howler, those who have seen the animal describe it as being similar to a bear in size, having a thick body and thick legs, black shaggy hair, a cat-like tail, and long horns. So some eyewitnesses have described it as a giant cat with glowing red eyes, and they say that it's bigger than any of the other like wild cats that the area is home to. And it's been described as being between 4 to 10 feet tall when it's standing on all fours, but it can apparently stand on its back legs, making it even taller. And it also is apparently able to move completely silently and stealthily, similar to how a lot of like big predatory cats are known to move. Mm-hmm. And it is a very gifted hunter, and it is also incredibly fast. So the main thing about it, if you think of like the name, the Ozark Howler, it has a very distinctive sound that is described as being a mix between a wolf howling, a hyena laughing, and an elk bugling, which is the sign that a person may have entered into the home of the creature.
How can you make all those sounds at once? How does it sound like all those combined?
I want to try and find a clip of the sound to play in here so you can hear it. But a side note, I didn't know that the noise an elk makes is called a bugle.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I honestly didn't. I mean, I know that elks make noise, but I didn't. A bugler. I mean, a bugle. That's a pretty interesting name. I just thought they just kind of like roared, but I guess not.
Well, I feel like, I mean, I know the sound that elk makes, but I wouldn't have described it as a roar. I don't think I would have known how to describe it, but a
Would you describe it as elk-like?
Yeah, I
The
think
elk
I
noise is
described
very
the
elk-like.
elk noise as elk-like, yeah. But a bugle does, I think, make sense. Because it's like, I don't know, what other sound would it be? Like a long grunt?
Yeah. I don't know.
Bugle
Anyways.
makes more sense.
So the howl is one of the most notable things about the creature, obviously, considering that it's named after the howl. So people who have heard the noise describe it as being very memorable and very creepy, and have said that it sounds unearthly, and that it's human sounding, or that it kind of sounds like a woman screaming.
So now we're having another sound that it sounds like.
Yes, that it has like all these strange mixes, but at the bottom line, it has been described as deep and demonic. Other people describe it as being deep and guttural sounding. Other people saying it's high pitched, which I think kind of seem to be at odds with each other. But regardless of how it's described, those who have heard it say it's a sound they will never forget, and that it is chilling and terrifying. And they also say that the howling almost always happens after dark, which just adds to the creepiness of the whole thing.
So it's probably a nocturnal animal.
Right. So some witnesses also say that along with the howler has this distinctive musky kind of smell that accompanies its presence or foreshadows its presence, which is unique and different from other musky smells that other animals produce. So certain animals are known to produce different smells, particularly in times of stress or when they're mad, which is able to signal to other animals a sort of a warning. So a show that I watched, which will be linked to the show notes, the host, who is a biologist, he was explaining like different musk smells that different animals produce. And he says that you can tell the difference between each different like musk smell because they'll emit them in different ways. And so in the program, the host came upon a water snake of some sort. So I don't know the name of the snake because I was not looking at the TV when the snake came on because I don't like looking at snakes. So he holds up the snake and in the background, you could hear the horses freaking out back at the camp. And so the horses aren't in a place where they can see the snake, but they're freaking out and getting all stressed out. And the host mentioned that the snake had its own scent that it had secreted because it was stressed, because the host was messing with it.
Interesting.
And he said that he could smell it, and that the horses could also smell it, and that's why they were getting anxious. So, like, if you think of, like, horses, sometimes will get spooked.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what was going on. And he said that different animals are known for producing different smells, and the way they describe it is, like, musk, and that each animal has a different one.
I didn't know that.
And so that if you're familiar with, like, the smells of the animals, you can differentiate and tell, I don't know what the smell of this animal's, or what this smell has come from. So similar to other legends around the world that depict a similar creature, people believe that the Ozark Howler is some kind of a dark omen that can predict the death of those who see it, or that those who hear its howl are marked for death. So the thing is, there are kind of mixed reports about whether or not the howler attacks or kills people. So some people say there's no reports of this happening, but we're going to get into it, that there are supposedly reports of it happening. But instead they say that the howl doesn't signal that the howler is going to kill them. It signals that there's going to be death that comes later. So typically in some kind of an accident.
Okay.
That can't be traced back to the howler.
It can't be?
Right. So it's like this person is hiking and they fall off of like one of the big cliffs in the area, but before that they heard the howler. So it's that kind of a thing. But it's not like, oh, the howler's mad, he's going to come out and kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a harbinger of like doom, kind of like the Mothman sighting before those kinds of things. So official sightings began being reported in the 50s. However, the legends about the creature have gone far before that to the people who live in the area. So one of the first accounts of the creature took place in the early 1800s with Daniel Boone, famous early American pioneer and explorer, coming face to face with the creature in Missouri. So Daniel Boone, he's the one that had the raccoon skin hat.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a big guy. He's a big deal. So some accounts say that he shot at the creature and killed it, and that he brought its hide home with him, while others say that they don't have that part of the story. But regardless, there's this famous story that Daniel Boone came face to face with a howler, apparently twice. And he discussed these encounters in letters that he wrote to his sister-in-law. So he described the animal as black and swarthy, and it had horns atop its head, and he said that warnings of the creature should be passed along to any settlers looking to move into the area. So basically he comes face to face with this creature. Some people say that he killed it. Some people say that, well, he may have, may not have. But he says, okay, I want you to pass along this warning about this animal because, the 1800s, people are moving west.
Right.
And so if people are settling down, then that's going to be dangerous. However, a lot of people are skeptical that the supposed letters to his sister-in-law even exist, as there's no real evidence pointing to their existence. And so some people say that it's probably just more of like a tale that was passed down, like a legend. So after Daniel Boone saw the creature, apparently attacks on settlers in the area from the animal began to happen and began to intensify. And people would survive these attacks and describe the animal. So then stories became common among the settlers in the area about, the howler that apparently attacked their settlement, and then they would pass it along to their children, and it would, pass on through the generations. And so the creature has also been the focus of a lot of books, pop culture, that kind of thing. But in particular, there were a large number of sightings between the year 2005 and 2010. So we have a lot of sightings. It's kind of like, it starts in the 1800s, Daniel Boone and the settlers, and then kind of getting passed down through the generations, and people are reporting sightings at all this time. But we get a lot of sightings between 2005 and 2010. So one family in the area set out trail cameras around their home, and it captured images of this huge black cat-like creature, and they turned those images over to a local TV station. So a lot of people think that the creature pictured in these images was a cougar. However, many other sightings occurred in that area, which was Crawford County, over that 5-year period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So people think, well, this picture is probably a cougar, but that area did have a lot of sightings, and so you have to think if there was a howler in that area, it makes sense that there would be a lot of sightings in that place, besides just that one.
Okay.
So in 2011, there was also a series of sightings in Newton County, Arkansas, and that kind of led people to speculate whether there were multiple Ozark Howlers, or if there was just one. So it's kind of the same case that a lot of cryptids come up to is, are there more than one? Is this a species, or is it just one creature?
Right.
But all of these sightings in these different places lead people to think, okay, is it traveling throughout the states, or are there multiple?
I mean, animals do have like migration patterns, so.
And if it's really fast, I mean, it could run around and get from place to place to place. But, so anyways, one of the most recent sightings was in 2015, where a person reportedly took a photo of the creature at a local state park after the group of hikers they were in claimed to saw the creature. However, many people have stated that they believe those photos are a hoax or some sort of a photoshopping job. And another recent sighting was in 2018, when another group of hikers claimed that they all saw the creature, as they were walking through a national park in Missouri. So there's this whole group of people, they're all on a hike together, and they say that they see this dark shape that's low to the ground standing ahead of them on the trail. So they stop and they shine their light on this creature, and it stands up on its back legs before jumping up into the air and darting away. So the members of the group all estimated that it was more than 6 feet tall, as it was taller than the tallest members in the group. And so you think, oh my gosh, it's standing on its back legs and jumping up into the air. That's insane. But big cats, can't do that. Cats can do that. We've seen Nova do that a million times. And in the last decade, there has apparently been a rise in the number of livestock in the area that has gone missing, or has been found dead with large chunks eaten out of them. So that would indicate that perhaps, the howler is a predatory animal, and so the livestock would be the prey that it's going after. And so they're kind of finding these livestock, and they said that they'll see them and ripped a huge piece ripped out of it, kind of like people saying the same thing happening with the chupacabra. And people wonder if there's some kind of correlation between increased in sightings from 2005 to now with the recent boom in housing throughout the Ozarks, and if that is kind of causing the howler to feel the need to defend its territory. Because the Ozarks have kind of always been a place where the rough and tumble people kind of live, but as people are looking for more places to settle and build houses, well, maybe they're encroaching on the territory. So we don't have a lot of images. We don't have a Patterson Gimlin film of the Ozark Howler, but we have a lot of stories that have been passed down for generations and generations and generations. So over time, we've had a lot of questions and a lot of explanations as to what could possibly be being called the Ozark Howler and if it is an actual creature. So the first one is a cougar. So remember, there was that photo. People thought, oh, that's a cougar. The problem here is that wildlife experts state that there is not a breeding population of cougars in the state of Arkansas. So there isn't really a large population in the area.
Is there states surrounding Arkansas? Is there larger breeding populations of cougars?
Sure, yeah.
So then couldn't the cougars travel?
Yes. Which I thought that was interesting that, it seems like maybe the wildlife experts were in this region of the Ozarks, there isn't a large breeding population, but it feels like they're all, the Ozarks are quite interconnected. And so it's hard to say
right.
There's no breeding population in Arkansas, but there might be in Missouri. The state, they did say that it's within the realm of possibility that there are a couple of lone cougars in the area, and that it could be responsible for the sightings, a couple of lone cougars.
Yeah.
On that same program I watched where the guy was talking about the musk, I believe they were in Missouri, but they were looking all throughout this area, and they went with a man who had claimed to see the Ozark Howler 3 times. And he said that before every time he saw it, he smelled the musk. And he would get such anxiety that he wouldn't go into certain places if he had smelled the musk in that place before. But they said that in the area they were looking at, there was a clear lack of an apex predator. That there were at one point they came upon a deer that was dead, and it had fallen off of one of the cliffs, and they were it's weird that no animal has come and taken it. And they said that there was a huge amount of middle members of the food chain, but no apex predators. And so that kind of points to the idea that maybe there's not a breeding population of cougars in those areas either. But that was interesting that they said, well, you can tell when there's no apex predator.
Yeah.
Because the animals weren't really scared of anything. This possum ran into the cage. And he's yeah, if there was an apex predator, he wouldn't have done that. And this deer that had fallen, it was being eaten by flies, and possums, and they were like, the sick and weak animals aren't getting, taken away by the predators, and so it's a big problem for the food chain. So a couple other options are a black bear. That kind of doesn't jive with it being described as like more cat-like.
You also would be able to hear a bear.
Right. Bears have a very distinct like growl.
Well, I was more talking about like the description that the Ozark Howler moves around silently.
Yeah.
Like cats are pretty good at that when they want to be. Bears are not.
Some cats are good at that. Our cat is not good at that.
She's good at that when she's not like running around like crazy.
Right, when she's running around like crazy.
She'll walk up behind you and you won't notice it.
I usually do. I just have a sixth sense.
She's also not an apex predator.
She like woke up and was like, "Excuse me," stretch your little toes out. But oh my gosh, in that same video, they saw a black bear on camera, and
In what video?
And I'm gonna link it, the one I watched for this.
Oh.
I think it was, what's it called? Mysterious Creatures with Forest Galante, Season 1, Episode 2. I got a free trial of Discovery Plus to watch it.
Yeah.
It was pretty good, but this like black bear comes at them, and the poor camera guy, he's like, literally the bear is like from me to that chair, and he's like, back up, back up, back up. And the guy's like backing up and the bear is like advancing on him. He's like, the bear is curious about us now. I'm like, this guy's about to be eaten by a bear on camera. He didn't. The bear like literally got from like this close. And he's like, well, that was pretty exciting. I'm like, you almost died. And it wasn't even the host. It was like the camera guy.
I would have booked it if I was that camera
I would have
guy.
been like, I need a raise or I'm out.
Yeah.
So black bear, a feral dog.
It's not big enough.
Not big enough. Also, like, feral dogs or, like, rabid animals, it seems like the Ozark Howler, everything about it is, like, it's stealthy, it's, like, a predator, it stalks its prey, it, like, moves in a very controlled, calculated way.
Really the only kind of animal that it seems to jive with is, like, some sort of wildcat.
Yes. So that's another one. A lot of the theories surround like some misidentified large cat. So the thing is, there are no known natural large black cats in the United States.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. However, there are a large number of people who have private ownership of exotic cats, as well as a very expansive black market of exotic pet trafficking, which
is no bueno.
No, that's They showed a clip of Tiger King on the thing, and I was like, ugh, I just can't. It just makes me so mad. Anyways, so there are no known natural large black cats as a species in the U.S. However,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
There is the possibility, it is within the realm of possibility, that some exotic cat that was being kept as a pet may have escaped and is being misidentified by people who aren't used to seeing it.
Well, okay, so aren't most of these sightings you said were at night? Mm-hmm. Well, everything looks darker at night because it's dark out. So,
well, not all of the sightings are at night.
But
the
most of them
sound
are.
is at night.
I thought most of the sightings were at night.
So there were some sighting. I know it said they always hear the howl at night.
Right, but are most of the sightings not at night too?
The sightings are all throughout the day.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I thought.
The thing is, though, cats are nocturnal.
Right.
So it would make sense that if this is some kind of a large cat, that it would be more active at night. So occasionally, bobcats are one of the animals that are known to inhabit the area. So occasionally they can be melanistic, which means that its distinctive coloring is black instead of the normal like spotted brown. So this is rare, but it does happen. But bobcats are significantly smaller than the Ozark Howler is, or how it's described at least. But bobcats can jump up to heights of 12 feet and are able to take down prey as large as a deer.
Right. And something that we've talked about in past cryptid episodes is how, like, when people are scared or in situations like that make them stressed or afraid, typically they will misremember details or unintentionally exaggerate details. So if they do see some sort of, like, if it's a bobcat, which is like a smaller on the smaller end of like the wild cats, like maybe they're afraid, when they tell the story in their minds it was this giant animal when in reality it wasn't.
Right.
It's
I think
possible.
there is also something, like, I still have a lot more theories, but I think there is something to be said for, like, so I have seen a bobcat. Like, my mom lives on, like, this very large, like, kind of, like, wild property. And I was at our house sitting when she was a Bible study, and I saw a bobcat, like, on her property going down to the creek. And I always would see, like, coyotes and all that kind of stuff. But when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, from far away, it looks like not that big. It's pretty cute. Like, I love all cats of all sizes, really. But I was like, oh, it's so cute. That's so cool. But, like, and I could tell, like, it has a very feline walk. Like, the Ozark Howler seems like it has kind of like a feline feature. But I bet if I was...
It's a feline.
Right. I bet if I was standing closer to that bobcat, if I wasn't in my mom's kitchen, like, looking out the window at it, but if I was, like, standing on the other side of the fence from it, or if I was out taking the dog to the bathroom and it was, like, standing a couple feet from me, I think it was a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Like, and it's probably just because it's closer. When the closer you get to something, like, if the bigger it looks, and if it's a predatory animal, like, acting predatory towards you, then you're going to think it's bigger.
Yeah.
Another theory is that it could be, like, some kind of mutant species, like a mutant mountain lion, or, like, a hybrid of a mountain lion and some other creature to create, like, a super species. So, for example, like, some exotic black cat escapes from captivity.
But if it was a mutated species, wouldn't we see more of it popping up?
Potentially. It could be also the reason why we see more than, like, it more frequently, and there's a question of, is there more than one? And also, like, you have to think of, like, certain genes or mutations. Like, mutations in the animal kingdom, a lot of times, those will die out.
If they're inferior.
Correct, yeah.
But if this is
It seems like the Howler's mutations are making it a lot more superior.
Right. So that would make sense that mutation would win out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's one theory. Another theory is that it could be a variety of different animals.
It's usually what these things are, in my opinion.
Yeah. So it could be like some animals are responsible for the sightings. So the howling noises could be coming from, like, a red fox or a raccoon. And the area is home to, like, a large number of predatory creatures. And they could be similar to witness descriptions. However, the horns and the howl are kind of outliers.
Well, that's the thing that the bobcat makes sense to me, because bobcats have pretty, like, pointy ears. So I could understand why you maybe would mistake that for, like, horns if you don't see it super well, or
yeah, that's a good point, Ethan.
Like that.
That's a really good point. And in regards to, like, the glowing eyes, like, most nocturnal animals, their eyes will glow at night.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's super cool. But it is creepy. I mean, like, if I walk out, if I'm going to the bathroom in the night and one of my cat's eyes, like...
If you're going to the bathroom?
Oh. Yeah. Like, if I get up and I'm going to the bathroom...
I thought you were saying going outside. I was like, what are you talking about?
No, I'd rather die. But I'm not a wilderness girly. But if I go outside in my house to the bathroom...
If I go outside in my house...
And Nova is, like, sitting on the ground looking at me, her eyes freak me out sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, because they're so, like, bright.
Yeah. She's so small.
I know, but when you're already a scaredy cat like I am, and you don't like the dark.
I guess.
However, the thing is, people who live in the region, who have recorded or heard the howl, say that they are very familiar with all of the other animals in the area and the sounds that they make. And that this howl does not sound like any of them. So they're saying, like, no, I know what, like, this one, mom and son that were interviewed. Or, no, it was a couple. And they were like, we've lived, like, in this area for our whole lives. And we know, like, every animal that like lives in the woods around us, and we can identify their sound, and this is not like any of the other sounds. Another theory that I put out, potentially it is Nova. Is Nova the Ozark Howler?
I think she's a little too small.
She's quite a small girl.
She's like this big.
She's a very small cat.
She's kind of long.
She's pretty long,
But
and she can jump really high.
I don't think anyone's mistaking her for a bear.
Her eyes glow, and she makes really weird noises sometimes.
I don't. She does make really weird noises sometimes. That is true.
Sometimes she does sound like she's howling.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's big
pretty
enough.
dramatic, though.
Maybe she's a descendant
Bean?
of the Ozark Howler.
Yeah. She does make this very, like, whiny, loud, dramatic
screech.
howl.
Yeah.
Screech when she, like...
Well, at just random times she does it.
At random times, I found that she does it when
we're not in the room.
we're not in the room. And I think she's stressed because she doesn't know where we are.
Maybe she's a descendant of the Ozark Howler.
We did find her in the wild.
It's true.
Bean? She's like, girl, I'm not even participating in this.
For once when we're recording, she's asleep.
I know, both cats are asleep. This is kind of weird. Another theory is that it could be like some kind of mutated saber-toothed tiger. And, like, problem is those are extinct.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware.
Yeah. If it were some sort of other species or mutation, you would think that it would have been like truly discovered by now. Especially
but the thing is, go ahead.
Especially if it's been around since like the settler days.
The thing is though, like that terrain does have a lot of places where creatures can hide, and there are a lot of animals that are unique to the Ozarks that they are still being discovered.
Yeah, but if it's that big, it's pretty hard to hide.
It's that stealthy though.
I guess, but we've discovered
and, like,
stealthier
big cats,
animals.
Something I think is so cool. Big cats hide in trees.
We've discovered like a ton of different stuff. I'm just saying if it's that big and it's been around for this long, you would think that it would have been discovered by now.
Yeah. Another theory is that this whole thing is just a hoax. So one researcher named Lauren Coleman believes that perhaps the legend of the Ozark Howler was this huge hoax that was created to kind of capitalize on and make fun of the rash of chupacabra sightings and reports around the 90s. This researcher, along with others, pinpointed occasions in which a person operating under multiple different aliases posted different stories and reported sightings about the Ozark Howler across multiple different websites and blogs. So this person was a student at the University of Arkansas, and he apparently made a bet that he could fool the cryptozoology community.
Oh.
I'm like, that kid is a nuisance. That kid is a nuisance.
I mean, it's not that hard to fool people.
I mean, that's kind of funny,
like,
honestly.
Already wanting to believe stuff.
That's funny, but it's also annoying. So the problem here is sightings of the Ozark Howler aren't new to the 90s.
Right.
They have been happening and have been reported by people since the 1800s. So this one kid in the 90s who's trolling isn't responsible for like 95% of the sightings.
Right.
Another aspect of this is that there is some bit of truth to the Ozark Howler legend, but that locals in the area would beef up the story by making fake sounds and telling exaggerated stories to scare people out of the area.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
So one guy in that same show that I watched two shows, but the one with Forrest Galante had like the most interesting things. So this one guy in the shows that I watched was a moonshiner, and he lived in the area. And so he lives in this like little hut, like in the middle of the Ozarks. The guy goes and knocks on his door, and he opens the door with like a shotgun.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's like a barefoot, bearded moonshiner. And so he was pretty secretive about everything. He didn't want to be on camera initially until the guy was like, we're talking about the Ozark Howler. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, come on in. And that's because making moonshine without a license is still illegal. So
I didn't know you could get a license to make moonshine.
that guy was cool though. So I hope that he's like still living his best life. Although I was kind of nervous because like he would pass, like, he's like, oh, try some of the moonshine I made. And he, like, all of the, like, the people in the video, like, and the production team were just drinking it. And pretty sure if you don't make moonshine right, you can go blind. Like,
well, he wasn't blind.
Well, that man wasn't blind, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he's sampling his own product.
Why wouldn't he?
I
Gotta know if it
remember
works.
I remember funny stories with Marissa. I remember when I was in college, when I was, I think, a sophomore in college, one of my friends made moonshine in the bathroom of his dorm, in the bathtub. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "You can't tell anyone because if you tell, then I'll go to jail."
That's disgusting.
But yeah, he made moonshine in his bathtub in his on-campus apartment.
You know how many people have been in that bathtub?
I don't want to think about it. He's like, "Do you want to try any?" I'm like,
That's
no.
so gross.
None of my friends that drank it went blind, so I mean, I guess that's a good thing.
That's just nasty. In a bathtub.
In a bathtub.
Oof.
I mean, here's the thing. All of the
People's naked bodies in
all
there?
of the alcohol and stuff, that's probably a really good disinfectant.
Yeah, I'm sure the bathtub was clean afterwards, but still.
I mean, they use alcohol to clean wounds. I mean, I'm sure that it'd be fine.
I still don't want to drink it. If
I
someone
didn't drink it.
No. I'm not saying you did. But I'm saying if somebody used some alcohol to clean a wound, so they poured it on the wound and then they catch it in a cup, are you going to drink that?
No.
Yeah, because it's gross. I don't care that alcohol cleans. It's gross.
Yeah. But, so, anyways, yes, this person that I was friends with made moonshine in their bathtub.
Should I air out their name, get them in trouble?
I'm not doing that. So, I think he might be a cop
you
now,
know
actually.
Who you are. Ooh. Fireworks.
It's August 29th. Why are there fireworks? So this moonshiner, not my friend, but the guy on the show.
Yeah.
So he said that his grandpa and him his whole family was like a long line of moonshiners. So he said that his grandpa and him would make noises similar to the howl to scare people off, who might rat them out to the authorities or people who were poking around in their business. So basically what he did was, he would make howling noises. And he also had a bucket and a stick that he would grab, and he would ring the stick up and down, and it sounded kind of similar to the way people would describe the howler. So he also said that even though there were times that they would exaggerate or mimic the howl themselves, that he still believed that the howler itself was completely real, stating that his grandfather had actually shot one in the past. So this man was wild.
He's a moonshiner.
He was wild. I was like, I want to know, this is a family business. Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Anyways, so he actually had the skull and the pelt from the howler his grandpa shot in the 1920s. Wow. He had it at the moonshine cabin. So the biologist on the show, it was the host was a biologist and his wife is also a biologist. Mm-hmm. So he believed, they examined them. The wife took a sample, and she said that she believed that the remains were from a now extinct creature.
Oh.
Which was the American red wolf. And this was common to the area at the time, but was left virtually extinct after overhunting. And right now, there are only about 20 living in the wild.
Wow.
But they do live in, conservatories and that kind of thing. So that did provide another alternate theory, which is that it could be one of those rare American red wolves in the wild, but that it's so rare people don't recognize it and mistake it as a howler.
But let me ask you this question. But it's not black. Yeah, okay. That's the question I was going to ask. Is it black?
But it was so interesting because the guy's like, my grandpa shot a howler. I have the pelt right here. And he pulls it out, and it was not black. But I was like, he's like, how long have you had this? He's like, well, probably the 1920s. What the heck?
See, all of this ultimately leads me to thinking it is probably just a bunch of different animals.
I'm not there yet.
Different times.
You gotta keep your theories in your head. I'm not done yet. So
I've already made my decision.
I know, we're getting there. The Ozarks are famous for being a home to people who want to kind of live out in secret away from the rest of society, like moonshiners or trappers or that kind of thing. So another theory is that it's a real creature, as described in the legends, or it's some kind of singular spiritual being. Most of the time, only one howler is ever spotted at a time, and there are no accounts of baby howlers or young howlers. And there are a number of species that have been discovered in the area that are unique to the area. So the howler could be similar, one such creature. And some people believe that this could be something called a wendigo or a skinwalker, which is a whole other topic that we will probably dive into in the future. Or that it is the spirit of a practitioner of black magic whose energy is tied to the earth in the area. So that it's real, but it's more of a spiritual creature versus a physical creature. And the final theory is that it is a local legend influenced by other local legends.
Wasn't that already one of the theories?
Kind of. So, there are a lot of legendary creatures around the world that feature similar creatures. A large black dog or cat-like creature that roams around various areas, acting as a symbol of coming death or doom. So some of these stories include the hellhound of Britain or other similar creatures in Irish or Scottish mythology. It also goes back to like ancient Greek societies as well. And it could be that as people immigrated from these areas, immigrated from Britain or from Ireland or Scotland, they brought their stories with them as they settled into the New World. And as these stories were passed down, new life was brought to them in accordance to what they saw in their new environment. And that new legends were created as the old stories were merged with new stories that had been told by Native Americans in the area. And so that is kind of like, it's more of like an urban legend that has been passed down through different societies and merged and stuff. So Ethan, we're getting to that part of the podcast where we wind down and where you tell us what you think about the legend of the Ozark Howler.
Almost all of the above. I think it probably is just a combination of the like local legends. I think probably sightings of like cougars or bears or a bunch of different things, different types of animals, maybe even like undiscovered animals. Yeah, I think it just is a combination of all these things.
Yeah. I think I kind of fall into a similar, thought pattern as you, that I do think that it's probably a lot of things. Like the howl could be one thing and the sighting could be another thing. I do think it would be cool if there was like some new creature. I do think there's not as much evidence, and it does seem like that a lot of the evidence is more like stories or like urban legends. But then of course you think like, okay, well, is there truth to the urban legends? Like, why have these stories been passed down for so long? Is there more to it? And so I'm kind of more of a skeptic on this one, but then of course when I hear like that it's been passed down for so long, it does kind of make me think why.
Yeah.
And kind of adds a little bit of like credibility to it. But I do think there's so many animals and so many like variations of how animals look and behave, even within like the same family, that it does make sense that it could be some animal with like a different genetic mutation or behaving differently. But as always, we want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that the Ozark Howler is a real creature? And if so, or if not, what do you think it is? And if you have any other cryptids or creatures that you want us to discuss, let me know, because I love doing cryptid episodes. And make sure you leave us a nice 5-star review on your streaming platform of choice. Share us with your friends and your family. We want to know what your friends and family think about the Ozark Howler. And we will be back in 1 week with another episode. Bye.
Bye.